commanded Joshua, "Choose some men to go out and fight the army of Malachi for us. Tomorrow I will stand at the top of the hill, holding the staff of God in my hand." So Joshua did what Moses had commanded and fought the army of Malachi. Meanwhile, Moses, Aaron, and Hur climbed to the top of the nearby hill. As long as Moses held his staff in his hands, the Israelites had the advantage. But whenever he dropped his hands, the Amalekites gained the advantage. Moses' arms soon became tired. He could no longer hold them up. So Aaron and Hur found a stone for him to sit on and stood on each side of Moses holding his hands. His hands held steady until sunset. As a result, Joshua overwhelmed the army of Malachi in battle. Let's pray. God, thank you for the opportunity to be up here, God. Just use me as a vessel, as a mouthpiece. God, just flow into this room tonight. Let chains be broken and lives be changed. I thank you for everything we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right. So I was thinking about Moses, and he's on the top of the hill, and he has his hands up. He's worshiping God. And I thought to myself, I was like, what is worship? What is worship to me? And I've always thought like worship is like a little hill song on a Sunday morning or Wednesday night, right? A little Jesus culture, you know. And so I looked it up because I wanted to know. And I found the scripture. It says Psalms 96:9. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Fear before him in all the earth. And I immediately started thinking, like, our lives move so fast, and we have a million things going on at once, that when we worship, it's like a one-on-one encounter with God. I feel like when we have that encounter, it's when we hear from God the most, you know, when we feel him, and when we're in the presence of the Lord, that's when things are changed.
Yeah.
So I kept reading, and I read that worship is an honor with extravagant love and submission. It's the priority we place on who our God is in our lives and where God is on our list of priorities.
Yes. That's big.
And I read that and I thought about it. And I love it because it's basically saying, where is God in your life? How does he play a role in your life? Do you believe in God or do you live for God?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm tired of having these proclaimed Christians, these people that put the title on themselves as a Christian. Yeah, they'll go to church on Sundays and they'll praise, but on Monday they're throwing it back on Snapchat. Right? And see, I'm tired of people missing worship and being sad that they're missing worship. But the reason they're missing it is because they're caught selling drugs at school. Right? Guys, I like when it says that worship is an honor with extravagant love and submission. Now, when I hear submission, I feel like hopefully this is none of y'all, but the cop is chasing you and he pulls out a taser. What are you doing? You're throwing your hands up and you're saying, "Okay, I submit to you.
Yeah.
Whatever happens from now, you have full control."
Yes.
That's how we should be in our worship.
Yeah.
See, worship is actually submitting yourselves to Jesus, giving your life to God, saying, from now on, whatever happens, it's in your control. It even says in Romans 12:1, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship." Guys, hands up. Hands up, worship. Give your God your life. And there's also a lot of ways you can worship. There's a lot of hand raises, and there's names for them. And as in this next video, you will learn about them. All right, here we go.
And I know that each church has its own worship style, which is cool. Some people are more expressive in worship, some people are more subtle, and it's all good. I go to a church that's pretty expressive in worship. It's a hand-raising church. That's what it is, right? Anybody here go to a hand-raising church? Yeah. Who here does not go to a hand-raising church? Some of you are trying, you're like, I can't. I want to I need to get some momentum. Totally cool. But hey, if you're not used to going to a hand-raising church, you want to go and join us, feel free to join us, but don't feel like you got to join right in, okay? Start slow. We got a lot of different hand raises that we use. We actually have names for our hand raises. So I'm going to walk you through real quick, okay, what they are, just to let you know. Say you're my church, music is rocking. Start slow, hands in the pockets, little elbow flap. You're fine. Very slow. Get warmed up. Get your heart rate up. When you're warmed up, start with the first one. Ready? Carry the TV. Carry the TV. Very slow. With a big screen. Big screen, little wider. Next one's my fish was this big. My fish was this big. If you're a liar, you go out there, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Jesus loves you. Great. Next one's hold my baby. Hold my baby. I'm doing light bulbs. That's our next one, doing light bulbs. Got goalpost. Everybody knows goalpost. Going to heartburn. A lot of people like to do heartburn. Double heartburn, right back to goalpost. What's my favorite? Mufasa. Mufasa, that's my favorite. The circle of life. Tim, can you go higher? Yes, you can. Take one hand, go a bunch of different stuff. Pointer, hatchet, schoolroom. Release the doves, give the Lord a high five. Press it out. A lot of women like to wash the window. Wash the window. And when you're comfortable there, go for the big three. Village people, Rocky touchdown. There you go, there's your big three. You're set.
And I love that video, by the way. I watched it like a million times. And it's weird because when we're in worship, like I'll point it out, like, oh, he's carrying the TV, or this fish was this big. So it's funny, guys. So there's a lot of ways you can worship. And then I thought to myself, what does worship do? What worship does? And the reason I have a problem with just believing in a God and having a being a proclaimed Christian, right? Because I was that. I would go to church just to please Bree. And then I would go home and I would smoke, I'd drink, I'd pop pills, and what I didn't realize is that I had a problem, I had depression, and I had an addiction. And if I would have known what the provision of God does in my life, and what victory can do, I would have been saved a long time ago. All that mess should have never happened, right? See, worship gives you victory. And a constant worship gives you constant victory. In other words, a routine of worship gives you a routine of victory. Just like a routine of Dunkin' Donuts gives you a routine of diabetes, it'll never change, right? The outcome will never change. It's always the same, right? And guys, realize when you have the routine of victory, your future battles almost become easier. Like Pastor Jay was saying last week, he said that when you have victory, you have a banner. And when the enemy tries to come at you, you can just hang your banner up. And I was making this, and I didn't even realize it. But I was like, man, that's exactly what he said. And it's almost easier because when you have that constant victory in your life, you almost have a resume that you have from all the victory. And so, say you're having a bad day at school, or your family is going through a rough patch. The enemy will try to tempt you in his games and bring addictions or taunt you. He'll try to put thoughts in your head of self-harm. If you struggle with self-harm, he'll put thoughts in your head with depression. depression or image issues. But all you have to do when that happens, because the enemy will do that, all you have to do is pull back out that resume and say, I've already conquered this. I've already had victory over this. Not today, Satan. You will not have my life today. Because I've already given my life, I've already submitted my life to God. I have no choice but to just conquer everything, right? And when the enemy tries to throw something big at you, right? Say one of your family members is diagnosed with cancer. I want it to be so that you have so much victory. You hear that and you say, not anymore. And you go up to that person and you lay hands on them and you watch the tumor fall out of their body right then and there. Because when you have the victory of God, nothing can stand in your way. When you have the victory of God, when you have the routine victory of God, the unnormal becomes normal and the impossible becomes possible. That's when things change. And when you have a bunch of friends with you that do the same thing, that's when you change your church, your school, your family life, everything. See, Moses didn't start winning the battle until his hands were raised. And better yet, he didn't have his hands raised until his friends had their hands raised.
Yeah.
See, Moses was going through a lot of this time. They were running in the desert for I don't know how long. And now they're having to face the army of Amalekite. But Moses had a plan. He was smart. He brought Aaron and Hur up with the hill with him. Just kind of like a safe blanket, saying that even if my hands fall, even if my routine of worship falls, I have my friends with me that I can lean on. So even if things are not looking my way, I have my friends. And just like that pre-game handshake, he had victory in mind.
Yes.
Right. So as I asked the band to come up, guys, tonight, if any of y'all are feeling that you've lost the routine of worship and you need victory over something,